My name is Iputu from Indonesia. Sir William for the gift from Barbados. And Magnolia with from your wife.
Yes.
I love Barbados. I've been in Barbados so many times from 2009.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
I give you. Hi there, we are in Naples, Italy. We're having a wonderful time. Looking over our shoulder, we can see part of Capri. It's a wonderful experience. You agree, Maggie?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Wonderful. See ya. Bye.
Say goodbye to Italy for another time. Only God knows if we make it here again, but if we do, it'll be something to look forward to. We had a good trip, and we give God thanks.
Lovely.
An old city, the first town of Messina was built by Greeks in 730 BC, in the 8th century BC. Greeks called the first town they built Zankle, that means sickle. And they called the town in this way because of the shape of the port that looks like a sickle. But in the 5th century BC, people from Athens arrived in this town, and they changed the name of the town from Zankle to Messana, that became later Messina. So here we are of the city.
Only one moving.
Oh, I
Yeah, the one on the right. Yeah, all right. Yeah, there's no one. The other one. Oh, you only see one. Turn around. Turning now. Turning. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So open the wide the door. More. Not open the wider. Don't take me. Oh, you don't.
that survived during the earthquake, but then the fire in 1943 unfortunately completely damaged the mosaic of the main altar and partially destroyed the mosaic the only mosaic in the left nave. These mosaics were made during Aragon rule in the 14th century. That's why we can see small figures represented in the bottom, and they represent Aragon kings and queens. On the mosaics on the main plate, you can see Michael and Gabriel. The main altar was also rebuilt after the fire, and the representation of the Madonna of the Letter was also made new in 1950s. Ambassadors that are visiting Virgin Mary are represented here. Just on the sides of the edges of the altars, you can see the tombs. The most important Sicily in the Neolithic age in
Look at the date.
Seventh.
7th.
5 to 9.
We're now in Israel.
5 to 9 Israel time. Sunday.
8:58. 8:58.
Sunday, November 3rd, 2019. On the bus headed towards Jerusalem.
Wonderful.
This is the day the Lord has made. We rode to Jerusalem.
Excellent.
Harbour right up in the north. Jaffa, near Tel Aviv, is another ancient harbour, even mentioned in the Bible. If you read the story of Jonah in the Bible, they talk about Jaffa. They talk about the temple doors floating or falling over the ship and coming to Jaffa. So Jaffa is further, it's north from here. Ashdod is south of Jaffa, and so the ancient harbor of Jaffa is about, not very far, 10 miles north from here. So we have Akko. Then we have another ancient harbor, Dor, which is not far from Haifa. But today, these ancient harbors do not receive the massive ships that are sailing in the seas today. Today, the ships come to Ashdod, where you are, which is an artificial harbor totally. It was built only in the 1960s. That's very, very recent in history in Israel, where history goes back thousands of years. So Ashdod is the newest harbor on the coast of Israel. The busiest, as you can see, it's extremely busy. And as we drive away now from the harbor, you are going to see lots of parking, with hundreds and hundreds of cars parked there, because the cars come from the east, are dropped in Israel, and then they go west to Europe. So Ashdod is the newest harbor we have. The other reasonably new harbor in Israel is the Haifa harbor. The British conquered the land of Israel from the Ottomans, from the Turkish people, and they built and dug out a deep harbor in Haifa, which is up in the north. If you're going to the Galilee tomorrow, and Goliath was part of the Philistine group, and the Philistines ruled and controlled all over this area, with Ashdod, and there's Ashkelon, which is south of Ashdod, and there's Gaza, which is also an ancient harbor. South of that, Gaza is very much in the news these days, not for fishing and not for trading and not for positive things like that, but from being in an area that's very, very aggressive to the presence of Israel as it is. And I'll tell you about the history that has led to a lot of aggression all around. So that's talking about the area we're in, the Philistine area. When King David lived 3,000 years ago, he had this conflict with the Philistines. And the big story about King David was that he wanted to fight in the army. He was a young boy, and his brothers were all fighting in the army. And his father said to him, "David, will you go and give your brothers some food?" And he gave him food to give to his brothers. But when David came there, he begged the leader of the army to let him fight. And he said, "You're a kid. How can you fight?" He said, "You're just too small to be able to." He says, "I can fight. I know how to fight." And David used to be a shepherd. And a shepherd carries the country of Israel. The state of Israel is only from 1948. But of course, its history goes back 3,000 years. So we're going to be covering parts on different points of those 3,000. All the way down to the south, at the very bottom of the map, you see a little bit of blue, which is Elam. And you see that the borders of Israel come down to a V. So the borders at the bottom are very narrow. And right at the bottom, you have Israel right next to Jordan, right next to Egypt. And you can walk from the one country to the other very, very quickly. It's almost like walking from one side of the harbor to the other, and even less. So you can see how the country is extremely small. At its widest in miles, it's 30 miles, and at some points it's only 15 miles wide. 15, 1.5. Very, very, very small country. The population, 1.5 miles at some points, yes. The population has reached now 9 million, of which 20% is an Arab population. And of course, the main religion is the Jewish religion. The Arab population could be either Muslim or Christian, but the Christian population is very, very small in terms of percentage, about 2 or 3%. Although there are many religious Christian sites and people living in and near those sites, but the percentage is very small. We, of course, are on the Mediterranean Sea, and we have very friendly neighbors, as you may know. We have Lebanon on the top of our northern border, Syria on the east, and we have Jordan coming all the way down on the eastern borders of Israel, and then we have Egypt at the bottom on the western side. So we are surrounded by people who are not that happy to have us where we are, and that's been the story of this country ever since its existence and ever since going back historically, because the story of Israel is a story of conquest and defeat. A country conquers. Canaan land was here, and it was conquered by the Israelites, who were then conquered by the Assyrians. Then they were conquered by the Babylonians, more or less the same, who were then conquered by the Persians, who were then conquered by the Greeks, who were then conquered by the Romans. And then after the Roman period, there was the Byzantine period, which is the period of where Christianity started and developed. The Byzantine period. So we're going from the 4th century AD to the 7th century AD. What happened in the 7th century? Islam then came into the country. Muhammad, who was down in Mecca, if we look at the map and we go right beyond Jordan, all the way down to the floor, you will come to Saudi Arabia. And Mecca is in Saudi Arabia. So Islam came in. Islam was a new religion. Muhammad had these... Somebody say farms? Cotton? I don't know. I couldn't hear. Well, you can see cotton fields, right? You can see farming, you see farmlands, you see cotton fields. And you are going to see lots of farmlands and lots of agricultural fields as we drive to Israel, which, as I say, is a very, very small country. And I am mentioning these farmlands and this agriculture because that is the beginning of Israel as we see it today, as Israel has developed today. Because when the people came out of Eastern Europe in the 1880s, why did they come to the land of Israel? In the 1880s, that was the time of all the isms that there were nationalism, Bolshevism, communism, socialism. This is what was happening in Europe. Countries were becoming countries. Germany became a country. Italy became a country. France was, England, they were all independent countries. Nationalism was coming in, and also Zionism. And what does Zionism mean? Zionism means coming back to the land of Zion to rebuild the land. And so what you see are agricultural fields, because while they were sitting in Eastern Europe, in the snow and the cold and the ice and the rain, the leaders came and said that the Jewish people need a homeland. Why did they feel they needed a homeland? Because the Jews had been dispersed since the time of the Romans. They were kicked out when the Romans were here. They destroyed the temple. The Jews were either killed or they ran away. Many ran up to the north to the Galilee, where you will be tomorrow, but many were killed and many left. And so there were Jewish people living in different parts of Europe, and it was all fine. It was fine when they were living in their little villages. They were not allowed to live in cities. They were forced to live outside in villages. And then in 1850, the Tsar of Russia, Alexander II, said Jews can come into the cities, bring them into the cities. They're industrious and they're creative. So they moved and started to move into cities, and they built the hospitals and the universities, and outside of the land of Israel for 2,000 years. It's time for them to come back. So they came and they bought this land from the Effendis, the different groups of people who had ownership of the land there. And they sent groups of people from Europe, from the snow and the cold and the mountains and water, to a desert land that just had really dry sand and stones and not a single tree. The Ottoman Empire destroyed every tree that there was here. They used it for building the railways. They used it for firewood. They never developed cities. And so the people in Britain and France got together, Sykes and Picot, the foreign ministers of France and England and said, we need to divide the land up of the Ottoman Empire, and England will have Israel and the French will have what is Lebanon and Syria. They will have control over those lands, and that was the beginning. And that's when the Jewish people came here, bought the land, and started to send people from these countries in groups, family groups. They were given a little house of 40 meters, they were given 6 acres of land, and they said, in this new country, you will start growing fields, you will start growing olives or cotton or tomatoes or wheat, and you will share whatever you make from what you've grown, share amongst you, so you all have the same opportunity. They went to school, they had a school in the community, and they set up little communities all over the country, and these were called moshavim. Can you see these hose pipes here? Can you see these little drain drip system? This is a creation. Israel today has the most advanced agricultural technology with systems that they sold all over the world. This is a drip system because they have to save water. This is a country without water. They had to find a way of conserving water. So they have these pipes going through all the fields with a hole for each plant, that each plant drips out water so it's not wasted. That and many other agricultural systems have been developed in Israel with a creativity that has been in a way forced upon them because they had to learn how to be independent, because they are surrounded by enemies and they have to keep thinking of ways how to defend themselves physically and how to have food to eat, so that the fields will be lush and full as they have become. So agriculture in Israel is very, very, the temple had been, they just managed to get the western part of Jerusalem, and that became Jerusalem for Israel. It became the capital. That's where the courts are and So we are now in at the Temple Mount, and we saw this wall, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
We saw this wall. We are going to be going all around this wall, and we'll be coming back to the Wailing Wall, which is over here, the Western Wall. Why is it called the Wailing Wall? Because this temple was destroyed in 70 AD by the Romans. There was no more temple. The Jews had no temple. Many Jews were killed. Those who managed to escape went up north to the Galilee, or they left and they went to live. They were dispersed for 2,000 years. The Jews were dispersed all over the world. But when they started coming back to Jerusalem, there were houses built all the way up to this wall, and the only part that was open was this section here. And so they started to pray here, because that was the nearest point to the Holy of Holies of the Jewish temple. And that's what we will go to soon.
Here's another one, Mikey. Here's another one.
1,504 years old. The oldest church in the world. Why? Because in the year 614, when the Persian attacked the Persian from Persia, where is Iran today? They conquered the land, they destroyed all the churches except Nativity Church. They didn't destroy the Nativity. Why? What happened? You can see the floor mosaic from the first church here. Okay? You hear me? Huh? Did you hear? Why? Where is your headset? Did you hear? This is the oldest church in the world, 1,500 years.
That's worth it, isn't it?
Because in the year 614, when the Persian attacked
Over the Well. It was built by the German Templars in 1880. Over the well, where the angel of God appeared, and Mary ran to a house which is basically inside a cave. There the Annunciation took place. When we're gonna be dropped off, we're gonna walk up the hill towards the church itself. It's about...
You need to cover your shoulders. You brought a shawl with you, it's a good time. Let's step inside and congregate next to me. Hello.
a different name to the Sea of Galilee. That's the English term. It's known as Kinneret. That's the Hebrew term. And us, the locals, we are in love with this lake. We got songs about this lake. We sing those songs when we're little children.
Hi from the Jordan River. Today is November 4th, the day before my birthday, 2019. We are at the Jordan River.
Of the Greek number heptagon, 7 saltwater springs that ran into the Sea of Galilee. And the meeting point of the freshwater and the saltwater up till today are considered to be the best breeding grounds for the local tilapia fish, the St. Peter's fish. So that's where we're heading towards. We're heading towards Tabcha, the 7 saltwater springs. We're going to visit a beautiful church, a church that was built in the 1930s, an exact replica of the church that was built 1600 years over here. This is where Jesus fed the multitude. Feeding of the 5,000 took place on the next site. Book of Nahum the prophet. Nahum also means comfort. Alright, that's the meaning of the word. Nahum means comfort. Jesus preached, performed miracles, gathered his disciples at the village of Comfort, Capernaum. got a mystery in Capernaum. In a certain stage, the Jewish community over here, and this is the only Jewish community in this area, accepted Jesus as the Messiah. That's really nice. Last week I've dropped the people over here and we walked all the way to the entrance. So many buses were here. Today, look, we're gonna get all the way into the parking lot, God willing. We do have miracles in the Holy Land.
From the days of Jesus? Not quite. We're gonna get there in a minute. Follow me over here.
To
Got a
what?
vacancy over here. I'm working my way according to the vacant area. All right. One of the most important miracles that Jesus was done over here was to heal Peter's mother-in-law. It happened right over here. You can see the octagonal house of gathering. All right. Now the sequence of events, as you all know, it happened somewhere over here. All right. You can easily see also next to where the group is gathering that this was a residential area, like the rest of the neighborhood all around us. Early believers in Jesus were persecuted, and they conducted their gatherings in private residential areas. 300 years of persecutions ended with the Romans accepting Christianity, and immediately in the areas where Jesus performed his ministry and performed miracles, those areas turned into churches. All right, so a residential area where Peter's mother-in-law was brought down from the rooftop. Again, the rooftop, they dismantled the rooftops, and she was brought down from above because the crowd blocked the entrance to the house. It happened according to the Christian, to the Catholic monks. It happened over here. Why? Because when they've excavated over here at the beginning of the 20th century, a piece of plaster fell from one of the walls over here. On it was an inscription mentioning in Greek the name Petras, the rock, Peter. All right? So since then, they're saying this is Peter's house over here. 40 years ago, they built this church right above Peter's house, a modern church. We can see the design of the fish you see over here, right? Fishermen's communities. And this church will offer a look from the inside through a glass floor into the octagonal house of gathering. So back to the synagogue, ladies and gentlemen. All right? This is not the synagogue from the days of Jesus, ladies and gentlemen. This synagogue was built 300 years after the events took place. The first century synagogue is at the bottom. Jairus' house was probably nearby, right? Jairus, the head of the community, the one that Jesus ordered his daughter to rise up. He was probably living close by because the head of the community will live next to the synagogue itself, of course. Jairus, that's Yair in Greek, by the way. Just to know, all right? Follow me, please. Let's head towards the synagogue. So this synagogue was destroyed at the 9th century AD and left in destruction until the arrival of the Catholic Church over here, who identified the synagogue and identified the site of rulers and tyrants and armies marched and destroyed the Holy Land. The name remained the same. All of them, different languages, different cultures, the name remained the same. Jericho was Jericho, Jaffa was Jaffa, Capernaum, the Sea of Galilee, Nazareth. Except in Israel. When Islam took over, the first thing the Muslims done was to change the name of Jerusalem to an Arab name. Alright, trying to disconnect, of course, the ancient connection of the Jews to their most holiest city. So Jerusalem in Arabic is not Jerusalem. Alright, but the rest of the sites, the same names. Alright? Commands that a Jew should perform each day. Judaism is a religion of strict laws of how to live your life, what to eat, what not to eat, how to conduct business, how to conduct a holy family. Very, very strict religion of how to live your life. That's the reason why most of the Jews in the world are they're not practicing. Right? Only the ultra-Orthodox, the ones that you saw at the Western Wall or you see all over the world with the long beards, some of them with sideburns, some without, those are the ones who will practice the full length of the religion with the 613 commands. That's why most of the Jews in the world are ish about their religion. You're gonna ask them, are you a Jew? He will say, yeah, I'm ish, Jewish.
Go ahead.
Hello. This is the Sea of Galilee
Wonderful.
right behind us.
Excellent. Oop.
What a privilege to be here.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Actually see what we've read about over the years.
Phenomenal.
There it is. Sea of Galilee.
So feeding of the 5,000, that's our next stop. We need our radios. With a visit to Nazareth, visited the Church of the Annunciation and St. Joseph's Church, and from there, driving through Cana, we've arrived to the Jordan River. After that, we've enjoyed a really good lunch at Geneseret Hotel, and after that we visited the area, the place where Jesus fed the multitude, feeding of the 5,000 at Tabcha, and then we visited Capernaum, the town of Jesus, and we've ended our Galilean experience on top of the mountain of Beatitude. Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, on a personal note, please spread the word, will ya? Spread the word. People are gonna ask you, how was it in Israel? Did you ride camels? Did you shoot Uzis? Did you throw hand grenades? Did rockets landed on you? They're gonna ask you. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. I mean, I hope you felt safe today and yesterday. Have you felt safe? This is very, very important that you will pass on with that feeling, ladies and gentlemen. Well, yes, you had a tour guide that played a bit of a trumpet and drew some attention, but it doesn't mean that you were afraid. You weren't afraid over here. That's very important that you will share your experience with everyone. Write about it. There is a ship website. Talk about your experience. Write about your experience. Very, very important. People will get inspired out of your experience over here. Spread the word.
Presents? Did you open your bags? Did I give you presents in the other countries you visit?
No.
I guess we love you more than others. Please come again. And inside of the prison bags, there's a questionnaire. Almost 5 million population. Tarsus is maybe familiar to. Who is from Tarsus? St. Paul. He is from Tarsus. So he completed his missionary journey all the way to the Ephesus. Dear guests, on the west we have the Greek islands, Greece, Bulgaria, North Black Sea. Next to Black Sea, Ukraine, Russia, and east, Georgia, Armenia, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. Maybe you start thinking we have nice neighbors. Divided too by Bosphorus, Marmara Sea, and the Çanakkale Dardanelles. Population of the country is about 75 million. 95% of the population Muslim. 47% of the population lives in countryside. The main cities, Istanbul, with almost 20 million population, used to be the capital of the Ottoman Empire. And the Roman Empire. area with 4.5 million population, not far away from Kushadasi. Only 45 minutes from here to drive to the Izmir, Smyrna.
Ephesus, Turkey. That's where we are today, November 7th or 8th. In Ephesus, where Paul made his famous speech. Now November 2019, and it's a blessing to be in Ephesus, Turkey.
We are in Ephesus, the location where Paul would have conducted significant exploits. It is deep in culture. I'm glad that we have the opportunity to visit here and have this experience.
You know what we've read in the Bible over the years, we know the physical location, we can relate to it now even more. That feeling and that touch of the realism of it. Turkey, Ephesus, Turkey. Turkey, the pages are.
The structure, the architecture, so educational, and it is impactful.
Biblical, this is where Paul gave his one of his famous speeches. With Demetrius, something like that. I don't have to read upon it again, but this is one of the spots that Paul spoke to the people of Ephesus. Takes us back to what we've read about in the Bible, and now we're actually in the physical spot where it was all
You would have to
done.
be on location to understand what we are saying. Just telling you is one
To feel
thing. The ambience of
the
it.
part of history.
1,000 seating capacity, 1,000 stand-up capacity, with the lovely acoustic. On the left-hand side, stone cemeteries, stone. Archaeologists at the moment, they don't know where they used them. They're stuck down there. They don't have the time. What they do, they burn the bodies. They put whitewash on top of the bodies. Okay.
block and then with granite, if you see the red one, probably from
Dedicated to Asclepius, God of Killers. Is there a medical person here? Doctor. Asclepion is a hospital. 500 years nobody passed away there, which is in Turkey, in Tartary. Because doctors there, they were first examining the patients. If they decide that they can cure the patients, they will accept them into the hospital. That's why 500 years nobody passed away. Why they do this? Imagine 2,000, 3,000 years ago, there is no way you can cure the people. But what they do, they use auto-suggestion, psychology. They make the patients to believe the doctors and the hospital. When they come there, and they examine them, and if they have a big problem, they say, well, you made a sin. Nothing we can do about it. There was a shepherd. Am I saying right? Shepherd? Has got goat. Yes. And he had a cancer. And all the hospital he went, all the doctors said, there is no solution. Somehow we heard about Asclepion. 2-3 days traveling, he reached to the hospital of Asclepion in Pergamon. And then doctors, they examined him, also they told him, unfortunately, you made a thing, you couldn't do, they couldn't do anything. And then he was really disappointed because nobody passed away in Asclepion. Nobody's returned back from Asclepion. On the way back to his tent, he decided to commit suicide. He wanted to hang himself. He told the people not to believe in the moldy stones and statues. He told the people to believe in
God made it.
But on the other hand, there was a silversmith named Demetrius. He was selling the fake statues to pardon. After the preaching of St. Paul, his business went down. That's why Demetrius says, Jesus, I'm not sure something for you. So why here the God of the people in Peter made them confess to St. Paul? St. Paul was hospitality in the Peter, was in prison a watchtower. After 3 months, he paid his the Malchus he had it in Rome. The best picture out of Peter is going to be down below where the trees are. But you came over.
And she finds the right spot for this red knot, and at that spot she picks 2 vertical threads. Devam edelim. And wraps it around left and around right one as well. Since it is twisted around both vertical threads, this is called a Turkish double knot. The other technique is the Persian single knot. I'm not going to go into very technical details, but we are using double knots. Double knots like neckties. If you pull my neckties, they will tighten. Same idea, as long as you walk on a double knotted handmade Turkish carpet, because of the friction, the knots will lock themselves and the carpet will become even more and more durable. At least 2-3 generations we guarantee. After she finishes the whole horizontal row, by making knots side by side, different colors, this is the way she created motifs and the pile of the carpet. Each knot is like 1 pixel on the screen. So with different colors she creates different motifs. Then she put a horizontal yarn through the vertical section, all the way through and back again, then beats them down. And you see the row she is working on already is tall, it needs trimming. Special carpet scissors she has. She shears the excessive parts by hand to adjust everything at a certain level. So everything is done by hand. So she keeps making the carpet this way. Let's say she is finished. Let's say this is the end of it. Put few lines, blocking line, then leave a distance and cut. And the distance left is going to be the fringes, the tassels. Ladies and gentlemen, the best way, easiest way to distinguish handmade and machine-made carpets is the fringes. Machine-made carpets either don't have fringes, or even if they have fringes, they're attached, overlocked later on, to make it look like a handmade carpet. But with the handmade carpets, since they are the extensions of the vertical threads, they are coming from inside the carpet. Does that make sense? Okay. She's making a silk carpet here, and this is going to be a little carpet, approximately 2 foot by 4, and will take her approximately 4.5 or 5 months to make. Wow. If she works 6 hours a day, this is our labor calculation, as if they are working 6 hours in one day. In 6 hours they can make approximately 2,500 knots, and this carpet contains 640 knots in a square inch. If we calculate the total number the rug contains and divide it by 2,500, will give us the days. Okay, and this will conclude approximately about 4 or 5 months. If you don't believe me, take your smartphones out and calculate the numbers I gave you, and you'll come to the same conclusion. Do you have any questions? Do you want to ask anything?
Leaving Turkey this time. There goes the pilot.
why this area was inhabited so early, 5,000 years ago. This is one of the oldest cities in the world. Take a look to the right at the Acropolis. The Acropolis on the right side, behind the stadium, you can see the Acropolis on the middle hill. Take a picture. You can see three hills. The left one is the highest hill in Athens. The middle one is the Acropolis hill with the Parthenon on the top. Have you seen the Acropolis? And the right hill is the Philopopos hill. It will disappear. Look back to the right and back. The temple on the top of the Acropolis of Athens is the Parthenon. You have seen. The plain of Athens is surrounded by mountains. Take a look in the front. The highest mountains in Attica, protecting the city of Athens against the northern winds, the cold winds, and the plain opens here on the right side, in the south to the sea, to the Saronic Gulf, so that the southern winds can...
The top, named after the goddess Athena Parthenos. This temple looked like this. Have I showed you pictures? I don't believe it. Next year I'll have better things. This is how the temple looked like. It was built of marble from the mountain Penteli. It had Doric columns supporting the pediment roof. The pediments were destroyed, like the roof of the temple, because at the end of the 17th century, 300 years ago, the Venetians came to Greece. They besieged the Acropolis because the Acropolis was the seat of the administration, Turkish administration of Athens. And during the siege of the Acropolis, a missile fell into the gunpowder magazine of the Turks, which was inside the temple, and the temple exploded. That was the biggest destruction of the Parthenon. And now there is in Nashville, Tennessee, a temple like this, a model of the Parthenon with the same dimensions and in the word Nike.
We are in Athens, Greece.
November the 8th, is it? Yeah, 2019.
Excellent.
Having
It's
a good
phenomenal.
time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.